Yes, people, welcome back to another video on Thai Sports, where today we're talking about Nottingham Forest's new signing. And it's a very interesting one. It's something that I actually like. I've done a video on Malik Fofana potentially going to Everton and talking about how Everton are trying to be different in the market with Tierno Barry and getting Malik Fofana potentially. And now I look at Nottingham Forest and look at the signings they've made in recent years. You know, the Murillos, the Milenkoviches, and now Dan Ndoye coming in from Seria A, again, obviously Bologna, who are a top team in Italy and competing for the European places. And I just love it. I love when teams are not buying the predictable trademark players that you just associate with football clubs, but you're going out and trying to be different, looking like you've gone out there and scouted and hunted for a player that you feel like is going to suit your formation and suit your system. And this is what I think Nottingham Forest have done. I think Nottingham Forest have gone out there and looked at it and said, look, we've lost a key player in Anthony Elanga to Newcastle. We've got the 55 million fee in, but we need to now go out and recruit. We need to go out and replace. Because one thing about the Nottingham Forest team is that their fans are ride or die. They're 100% all in invested. And Nottingham Forest are now back in Europe. Now, to sustain that and try and maintain that and also deal with it as well, you need to go out and replace some of your elite players when they leave the club. The first one is Anthony Elanga. We've seen him go to Newcastle. I understand the move of him going to Newcastle because they need a Jacob Murphy, like for like, right-hand side. Newcastle are back in the Champions League. And as they know, 2 years ago, they struggled with the squad depth. It makes sense for what they need in that team. And rightfully so, Nottingham Forest wanted a big fee. Nottingham Forest wanted 55 million. And that's what they've got, you know, or 50 million plus the add-ons or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, right, it's about how do you respond? How do you go out and get someone in that's going to appease the fans? It's going to show the fans that, look, we don't just want to become a European team and sell our best players after the first season. No, we will go out there and replace and we'll try and replicate and do what we can do. And they've now gone out and signed 24-year-old Switzerland winger Dan Ndoye, as confirmed here by Fabrizio Romano. Dan Ndoye completes the main part of his medical at Nottingham Forest today after 40 million plus 5 million add-ons deal agreed with Bologna yesterday. Nottingham Forest also accept to have a 10% sell-on clause for Ndoye allowed for Bologna. So this deal is basically done. He's passed his medical. He's ready to be a Premier League player. And this deal should be done, announced today or tomorrow at the latest, confirmed by Fabrizio. And do you know what? I'll be honest with you. I like the signing. Because, like I said to you, I didn't expect it. I think Dan Ndoye is a good player. I do think he's a good player. I don't think his numbers really back up him as a player, but I think he's a better player than what his numbers are. That's what I will say about him. Obviously, being 24 years of age now, coming in from Bologna, and look, let's get the first thing out there. He's coming in off the back of his best season at the football club. Yes, the numbers might not look great, but performance-wise, he's been consistent for them. He's been a big impact for them, and they won the Italian Cup. That's the first time the Bologna have won a trophy, I think, ever or in over 50, 60 years. It was huge for them, beating AC Milan in a final as well. When you're playing a team like AC Milan, mentality juggernauts, a big team in Italy, you're not expected to beat them. You're expected to fall at the final hurdle. But Dan Ndoye put in a top performance to help Bologna win that cup. I actually watched part of it as well, and he was one of their main outlets. He was one of their main threats, who is always wanting and demanding the ball. I think it was a moment for him as a player at 24 years of age now, coming into his prime, that Dan Ndoye was like, do you know what? I need to go out now and make myself be counted. I need to stand up and show the rest of Europe what I can do, because people are watching that final. Because Bologna could have won their first trophy in a long time. And you got to remember, Tottenham did it, Bologna did it, Go Ahead Eagles did it in Holland. It was a lot of teams last year that won their first trophies, which was crazy. That's why I always felt as a United fan, Spurs were going to beat us. But anyway, that's another story. But Dan Ndoye did stand up and be counted. Now, why do I think Forest have signed him? Well, personally, the first thing is the pace and the ability in transition. And that's what I think Dan Ndoye will bring to Nottingham Forest. I think that Elanga was a very key player for them in transition on that right-hand side, ball carrying ability, 1v1 ability. Now, You've got Gibbs White who's staying, which is a massive coup for Nottingham Forest, staying for another 2 years at least, right? So you've got Gibbs White in the 10. You've got Hudson Ndoye potentially on the left-hand side at the moment. You've got Chris Wood going to lead the line with Igor Jesus, the sub, and Teo Awoniyi as the sub backup as well as striker. So you've got Hudson Ndoye, Gibbs White, and now Ndoye, who I expect to see lead the line on the right-hand side. But what he will give you is similar to Elanga in terms of, yes, okay, let me make it quick. He's not as quick as Elanga, but not many people are. So you can't go out and really buy someone as quick as Elanga. Or you might do in Adama Traore, but you're not getting sort of the technical ability that Elanga has. But Ndoye, for me, is better technically than what Elanga is. I do think Elanga's good, but I think he can be a bit raw technically, whereas I feel like Ndoye is not as quick, but technically he is better than Elanga. I feel like he can play more in the pockets. He can drift inside, give and goes 1-2s. He can technically just look more pleasing on the eye. Whereas I think Elanga, you get the most out of him when he's running onto a ball or when he's out 1v1 and he's just got to kick it past the player and run. So ultimately, you need a right winger. That's what you're looking for at Nottingham Forest. That is the truth. And here, I've got a demographic of Dan Ndoye from last season. So when you look at it here, this is a couple of games or this is data over a few games, right? So passes and carries, as you can see on the right-hand side, completed passes. Some of them are ball carries as well. And that's what I like to see. You know, a lot of them are ball carries as well. And that is what Elanga was essential for. So I think when you look at teams now in the transfer window, you need to go out and get basically a like for like, or someone that's going to do similar things to what that profile is of that player that's leaving. And he shows that he can do ball carrying ability. You know, he can pick up the ball, drive at his man, hold on to it, allow players to get further up the pitch and take on his player. And that's what you need. You need a player that can take on their player, be confident. Because Nottingham Forest play a 3-4-3, sometimes, you know, a 3-5-2 or 4-2-3-1. I say 3-4-3, 4-2-3-1. So you're going to be in a lot of 1v1 situations. And I always think the best wingers in the Premier League are able to take on their man. 100% are able to take on their man. And Ndoye's physical as well. You know, I think with him, he's not just a winger that's a small, nimble winger. He's strong as well for what he is as a winger. So he's not going to get barged off the ball easy. The closest comparison I actually have of what Ndoye reminds me of, Ndoye kind of gives me Ismail Assar vibes from Crystal Palace. Quite a tallish winger that can come inside, technically sound, can score goals, is quick enough as well, can take on a player 1v1. He's like an Ismail Assar, and I think that can really, really work at Nottingham Forest because I think he can add goals, creativity, and just another dynamicness to their team. And as you can see here, his touch map, a lot of it's on the right-hand side, similar to the positions Elanga was picking up. So you're not going to miss out on too much there, which I think is a big plus. And then you look again, obviously you can see his event map, you know, take-ons, aerial ability and stuff like that. But mainly it is, you know, looking at the take-ons and his dribbling, you know, shots as well, coming inside, taking his shots. So I do think he's going to be a person that's going to slot in exactly where Elanga was playing. Whether he's going to have the same impact as Elanga, I don't know, because obviously it's the first season. You know, you've got to be realistic and understand that at the end of the day, he's coming in from Italy, which is a bit of a slower league. However, when you do look at Dan Ndoye, he's coming off the back of his best season so far. You know, the numbers are not insane. 30 games, 8 goals, 4 assists. Look, the contribution is not massive, right? I don't know what Elanga's was last year. Let's have a look. Elanga's stats, 6 goals, 11 assists last year. So he got 17 contributions and Ndoye got 12. But I feel like it's what Ndoye does in terms of he's always involved in the game and looking to be one of them threatening players, you know, coming inside, picking up the ball from deep, wanting the ball. I feel like Elanga is not really involved in games as such. I think he can have quiet moments, but then he can have bursts, and all of a sudden it's like he's causing chaos. Whereas I feel like Ndoye wants to be involved a bit more. So whether he's not providing the goals or assists, I think you're going to get a player that works hard. He's going to link up with the midfield. I think him and Gibbs White can have a good connection. And I think it's a good signing. And where Nottingham Forest are right now and where they're achieving to be, I think you've gone out and got a 24-year-old who's coming off the back of his best season for Bologna, helping them win a cup, and he's ready for the step up into the Premier League. And I do think he suits it. If there was an area of improvement for me in terms of Dan Ndoye and what I think he could be better at, when I've watched him, which is small samples, is that I think in terms of when he's on the ball, sometimes he can shoot from areas that you're like, Why are you shooting from there? He can become a bit wasteful in terms of that side of things, like making the right decision and shooting from silly areas. I think that's something that Nuno Esposito will fine tune. I think that's a lot of things that players might pick up on early and try and get him accustomed to that and say, look, we ain't doing that here, because you've got someone like Chris Wood as well in the box, you know, who can get on the end of things. So don't shoot, maybe put in a great cross, you know. So I just think being a bit more smarter with your decisions instead of feeling like sometimes you have to go for the Hail Mary. That might be some areas where I think he can improve on. But in terms of his style and what he can offer, the 1v1, the dribbling ability, you know, the dynamicness, working hard, you know, in terms of the front line, I think it's going to be a good signing for Nottingham Forest. And I'm very intrigued to see how it works out, because if you said to me what sort of profile should Nottingham Forest go for in terms of signing someone to replace Elanga, it actually isn't easy. Like off the top of my head, even in the Premier League, I do struggle to think of someone off the dome that I'm like, right, do you know what? You know, Forest should go out and get that player. He could definitely work for them. So, you know, they've gone to Bologna, they've gone to Italy to get the 24-year-old Ndoye. He's done his first part of his medical, and it's a big signing for Forest. And probably going to be one of their main signings of the window, considering Elanga's the biggest player they've let go. So yeah, guys, I think this stylistically fits. I don't think he's as quick, but I think he's more technical in Elanga. And let's see how he gets on. But if he gets 10 Premier League goals in his first season, I think that'll be a decent return, 100%, especially for an attacking midfielder. So let's go from there and see how it works out. But guys, I hope you like this video. Make sure you subscribe for more content. And Nottingham Forest fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you happy with this signing, or would you prefer another signing over Dan Ndoye? Bless up.